Hi, everyone. Welcome to VC TV, which is the venture capital TV from La Token. So today we have another episode on supply chain. I'm going to talk about how blockchain has benefited supply chain in a big way, especially during COVID-19 pandemic. So today we have Shrikant, who's been a regular speaker on our panel. Hi, Shrikant. We have Gary, who's going to be joining us soon from Florida. Very early for him today in the morning, but he is going to be there. And we have a new speaker from Singapore, who's Nitin, and he's joining us for the very first time. So before I start introducing our speakers, I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Sonny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of La Token based here in Singapore. I host the shows Monday to Friday, and VCTV is a venture capital TV where under one roof, and the whole idea is to make some connections, make some work, get some work done, get some funding, build something, so that's the whole idea. Because due to COVID-19 we couldn't do our roadshows, the physical roadshows which we used to do all around the world. Nitin, just giving you a perspective about what's VCTV about. So VCTV was born in February 2020 this year because we couldn't travel around the world, where we used to get founders, speakers, investors to connect and collaborate and network. So that's the whole. That's the whole point. So am I guys audible to you very well? Can you see me well, both of you?
Pretty clear.
Okay, great. I just have to ensure that I'm clear, audible, and everything, so that you can take my questions. Okay, great. So that's about VCTV. That's about me. Today's topic is very important, and today we're going to have listen from our speakers about what's happening in the supply chain, logistics space, and how technology, be it blockchain, be it machine learning, AI, has actually benefited, especially during these difficult times. So I'm going to start with Nitin. Hi, Nitin. Please start by introducing yourself, your company, and what you do, and then we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonny. Just to give you a brief background to the audience, I've been into commodity industry for the last 15 years. I've worked with hedge funds, commodity giants, multinational banks. Some of the names are Cargill for about 7 to 8 years. I work for a multinational corporate in Singapore. We are known by the name of Agrocorp International Pty Limited. So we are in the business of physical movement of commodities for the last 30 years. And just for the sake of understanding for the audience, we are in the business of logistics. We physically move, buy commodities from farmers across Canada, Australia, US, and sell it to emerging markets under wholesale as well as our own brand. So we transport almost $4 billion of goods, overseas and under containers or bulk shipments across the continent. Just as while we start this, we got into looking at various technologies. About 2 years back, how could we kind of streamline our more than 50,000 farmers which we buy from. How could we look at sustainability, traceability, and efficiently move our goods from emerging markets to emerging markets. So a couple of years back, we partnered with pretty much a technology partner, which we were able to kind of get the entire transparency and traceability part of the entire supply chain, which has banks, farmers, logistic partners, everybody on board. So we'll probably take it into much more subsequent session. But just to give you a part, we are part of the blockchain 2021 program of MAS and enterprise to probably take this much more forward.
Wow, fantastic. I have many questions for you, Nitin, and thank you so much for that introduction for to give our viewers. Shrikant, over to you, please.
Uh, for those of you who have been following VCTV, I'm no newcomer to this particular channel. I'm Dr. Shrikant Pathasarathi. I'm a lawyer, chartered accountant, um, PhD in finance. I work with family offices and I help make meaningful investments for them. I chartered the strategy for 2021, and we are in the process of looking at different portfolios, different asset classes. And one of the portfolios happens to be emerging technology or deep tech, right? So these are two classifications that we're doing in technology. So blockchain for supply chain is a very specific niche. I'll touch upon that once we come to that part of the topic.
All right, fantastic. We're all set with introductions. I'll be expecting Gary soon. While we're waiting, let's not just waste time and let's just jump into questions. Nitin, just tell me what are the challenges? Because blockchain technology, as everybody knows, is it's not something that has been adopted, significantly. People say it's a hype and it's gradually getting into production, we see a lot of use cases this year, but what were the challenges you saw before you actually implemented or deployed blockchain technology in the supply chain field? Because the whatever you described, like getting all those moving those food from the suppliers to the to the end customer is a complex process. A lot of hands are involved. So tell us the challenges you faced and what did your company do to overcome that, and why blockchain?
Yeah, so just to kind of, start in a very layman's language, right? I mean, for a lot of people believe that having like an ERP or an SAP solves the problem of logistics. It doesn't, right? I mean, so there is no external ecosystem, so if you really look at any, so-called ERP or, processing systems or, database systems, all the information gets feed in and reconciled, but there is no real time way how we can, kind of look at various nodes among, buyer, seller, shipper, where the shipment is, right? So this is, possibly, the starting point, right? I mean, we are in a, in a logistic, business wherein we have more than 100,000 buyers and sellers, and we kind of have shipments which are, ranging from $5,000 to about $50 million. So the idea was, how could we kind of bridge the gap, and how we could use technology which people could trust, and which basically becomes, in a way, scalable. A couple of other things which kind of add to the thing is, today there is a big focus on, you know, what are you buying and where it originates from. What we call it as sustainability, traceability. What has it gone through in terms of fertilizers? What kind of inputs it has gone through? So all these kind of add margins to us. But one of the big reasons that why we got into this business was the entire trust and traceability angle. Which become, I mean, what it leads to, it reduces our supply chain in terms of working capital cycle. If you really look at why this space is so interesting for investors and people like people who are into probably getting into in development and all that, is because this is a space wherein banks would never get into, because banks are too complex right now. They have their own legal, they are in a way very, very big machines which doesn't embrace technologies. So why from an investment standpoint, they would be solution providers which could probably step in between banks and what we call it corporates like us, and kind of bridge that gap. So one of the big challenges in this space was that this solution, in the last whatever 100 years, we haven't seen any big development in logistic business. But once the fintech has kind of, and through blockchain who has kind of come in, right, that's where we kind of see a big difference. So the big part was, mentally, bank to accept that, they cannot be good at it. Better to partner with, fintech and technology partners who could probably provide this, entire solution.
Right. So what are you doing with the central bank and Enterprise Singapore?
While, so kind of just to give you a perspective, right? COVID is, probably like a push to the entire thing, because just to give you, while we were mid of March, we actually increased our revenue by about 15%. In the mid of COVID, wherein we could see our competitors who were doing a lot of things on moving the papers, moving things, moving information, through physical channels. We could even transact, from continent to continent less than 5 to 6 working days. So what really happens is, while you are interacting with, so many banks, so many counterparties, buyers, sellers, shippers, insurers, right? It gives like one trust platform with what we call a trade finance ecosystem, right? So just to give you a number, which is physically available, in public available, we actually were one of the corporates wherein our revenues actually increased, by 15%. Whereas on the other side, we saw commodity prices going down by 30-40%, despite that. So that's the kind of, perfect use case. So today, with that push, banks want to digitize, banks want to embrace this technology, banks want to partner with more fintech. So it opens up the space for new investments, new technology partners, new improvements in the entire process.
Right. Fantastic, Nitin. Thanks so much for sharing so much information and all the benefits that you've just highlighted about blockchain in the supply chain space. Thank you so much. Shrikant, quickly over to you. So how is supply chain disrupting delivery?
So I think I just want to top up on what Nitin just said. I mean, he would be a subject matter expert in this particular regard. So it would be difficult on my part to actually comment on the expert actually opining his view. But what I can say is real-time payments and real-time payments for farmers and real-time payments for origin is something that the world is actually grappling with, right? We have letters of credit, we have credit periods, we have banks trying to finance a credit period. The whole industry is built on it, right? So I think somebody could disrupt that. That's a fantastic initiative, and that's something that is required at this particular moment. In supply chain especially, I feel there are two kinds of problems, right? First is what everybody talks about, which is a last mile problem where where the payments actually happen and so on and so forth. I would also talk about something called the first mile problem. Is it where production happens, but you don't have any system or any mechanism to actually get the goods out of the factory into the hands of the end consumer. So, and there are many people who are trying to disrupt that particular chain in terms of farm to table kind of setup. I think these two problems, if that can be solved, and the only solution seems to be blockchain in this particular regard. So where you have real-time payments, secure payments. I wouldn't exactly say traceability of payments, but more in terms of repeatability of payments. Ease of payments is something that that blockchain enables. I think investments are hard to come by because people don't understand it. It's like the insolvency and bankruptcy code. Nobody understands it, right? So I think the question is about subject matters like Nitin, who understand the market, who can explain that particular product to potential investors. I think that would be the key.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shrikant. Nitin, what were the challenges you faced while you were probably maybe someone from your company were actually planning to roll this out? I mean, were there any issues in the beginning?
Actually, let me give you kind of, some sort of, background about, things which have happened in terms of instances, which kind of led to a faster adaptation. And,
Yes.
the biggest problem for any new technology is educating people, right?
Yeah.
So when we saw multi-billion dollar frauds in banks, which are on supply chain, across commodity players, wherein, the problem with, paper is, it can be routed, it can be moved in various places. They know authenticity in terms of what we call it, cross matching across different segment of counterparties, right? So when we saw those big ticket frauds, that's where central banks and corporates, along with banks, really wanted to get a bigger view of the entire supply chain, right? And I would say that just pushing per se, that we are working with technology, that doesn't work with big banks. So bank realize that they want that additional information, because what they cannot rely on is, they are willing to fund, but how could they reduce fraud, right? So this has been the sea change. What we are seeing today, banks are willing to kind of work with fintechs, accept technology products, which could be internal development, or probably buying solution, because there has been, I mean, they could have realized that just relying on paper and just relying on this is not something which makes their business model foolproof. So that, I mean, I would say that while there was a challenge on acceptability of using a technology, with you know like COVID and high profile frauds have led to, I would say, acceptance of it.
Right.
So because all the Wall Street banks and all the big banks across the globe, you know uh, the kind of size they are into, they are very difficult to change. So one of the things, what as Shrikant mentioned, they deal in letter of credit. So the letter of credit say that banks only believe in document, right? you know so for them, they don't understand how could getting information through technology is good enough to kind of take care of the physical paper. So I would say that while the problem was acceptance of it, now with a push, the acceptance have gone very, very high.
So this is
And
a brilliant case of
yeah,
trade finance, a blockchain on trade finance.
exactly. And it's happening in the central of Asia with Singapore, wherein MAS along with banks have been mandated to kind of, deploy resources and accept it. So, and once, I think one of the use cases in Singapore, I mean, which we have already seen, right? Once it is kind of full-fledgedly approved, it goes back to various trading hubs across the world.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you, Nitin, for sharing that. We have our third speaker, Gary, who just joined now. Hi, Gary. Welcome to VCTV. How are you today?
Hello. How are you? Sorry about being late. We're in a negotiation with some investors on our project.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. So today we are talking about discussing about supply chain investments around that, and how can machine learning and blockchain, sort of bring in benefits to the supply chain process that we have currently. So that's the topic. So we got Nitin, who just joined us from Singapore, and Shrikant, you know him already.
Sure.
He's
Yeah, sure. No
India.
problem.
Gary, would you like to introduce yourself to Nitin and other
Yeah,
audience?
yeah. So hi, everybody. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur, investor. I've done 16 companies. I have 18 portfolio companies. I've had 2 unicorns. I love AI, artificial intelligence, transportable AI models. In fact, today I just wrote an article that'll be published by the end of the week called Quantum Computing and Blockchain, How Quantum Computing Will Make Blockchain Obsolete. And I write a lot. I've written, I guess, 90 some articles now. I'm writing a lot, 3 to 5 a week. I believe that we're in an incredible time in humanity. We've got this virtual world and the physical world, and this digital transformation has really helped us keep the business more vibrant than it could have been. So we're excited about that. I see that I've been on calls since 4:30 this morning, actually, with AI companies. But there's a huge opportunity, and the companies that take advantage of it right now during this pandemic. The good news is Pfizer said that they have a vaccine that's 90% effective for 90% of the people that's come out. Well, you look at Zoom went down 20% that day, right? And Peloton. So I'm sure Disney went back up again. You know what I mean? It's like, no, we're in a great time, and I'm encouraged by. So on the supply chain side of it, I actually was on the original team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce. We were in service chain optimization. So I love the supply chain all the way back to where the raw materials come out to the time it gets to the consumer. And so I've got some quite a few comments about that when you need me to jump into it. I love it.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Gary, and welcome to VCTV again. I'd like to ask Shrikant now. Shrikant, as an investor, what kind of best practices would you advise founders and startups in this sector to be able to get funded and scale up? Because, yeah.
I may offend a lot of people by saying this, but startups, if you assume that investors know even basics of blockchain, you are heavily underestimating or overestimating the investor. Investor knows zilch. They just see that as a pure opportunity, and it's for you to educate the investors. They may have a bit of knowledge. That is something that you need to build on. You have to be very specific about what solution that you're giving. Second, blockchain is not equal to crypto. A lot of people take, right? They equate that to crypto, and that used to happen about 6 months ago or a year back when the prices were really volatile. Gary can back me up on that, but it doesn't happen anymore. Blockchain, there is always a need for more and more solutions in blockchain. There are so many industries, so many sectors to be disrupted with blockchain. Present a use case for all of them. Don't get stuck in one particular use case. So that is my advice to entrepreneurs.
Any more, or just we're done?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Me personally, more.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Shrikant. Nitin, so just tell us about, from a startup perspective, you understand this space very well. So from your experience working in this space of trade finance and using blockchain technology, so what do you think are the best practices you can advise a startup or a founder who is trying to venture into this space?
I would like to say that, there are already in this space quite number of unicorns or to be unicorns, which are, trying to improve, their product, their offerings. One of the advice that I would like to kind of, tell to these guys that either they could choose to work with corporates or they could probably choose to work with a financial partner. In our case, are either the hedge funds or the banks, right? And then collaborate in the entire ecosystem, right? So I would say, depending on the kind of offering that you are in, you have to choose the right partners, which has a higher acceptance or in a way, I would say, the kind of product offering you have, there's a high acceptance among the, the user. So
Right.
because there are a lot of solutions which could be like an interbank blockchain solution, which the customer could be out of it. We are already seeing some of the solutions going live in Singapore, along with central. We are already seeing some of the solutions which are multi-bank along with customer. So depending on your niche, I would say the startups should. And because there could be different use cases, different product offerings.
Yeah.
That's the advice I would like to give.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nitin, for that. Gary, well, let's talk about the issue that we had in early this year about toilet paper. We just
You love that issue, don't you? You know what I mean? It's something about it. Here we are, PhDs, world renowned, Oxford, Cambridge, but the come goes back to keep it simple, toilet paper.
The world went crazy, even in Singapore, like all over the world, people are like going crazy. I mean, the supermarkets were like totally empty, the shelves, and people are going crazy and they're holding toilet papers and other stuff like hands, those hand sanitizers and whatnot. The world was crazy, going crazy during this time. So what was that? I mean, why did it happen? And
well, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? So, we all talk about lean startup, lean manufacturing, just-in-time inventory. Well, if you got just-in-time inventory and a third of your plant gets COVID and you need to shut down because there's a lockdown, there's no toilet paper. This is not rocket science. So if we don't have inventory levels and we don't have the people to manufacture it, that's what happens. So it's pretty simple. It was good for the people that had some inventory because they could sell toilet paper instead of $10, $100. I mean, people, I think I told you the story, right? When it happened, I was really, my wife says, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'm not going without toilet paper and towels. So I called up a yacht supply place and I bought really expensive toilet paper. I bought a whole case of it. It was the worst toilet paper I ever had in my life. It was thin. It was like it's like that Japanese paper. It was like rice paper. I bought it. I got a case of this garbage that came in, and I thought, I must be crazy. I like really nice fluffy toilet paper, and I got rice paper feeling stuff now. What the world? So we were all crazy. But listen, this just showed us some of the ideas that we have and the methodologies we put in place don't work in pandemic crises, right? And think about it. These masks, these paper garbage, I got them here, right? You got these stupid masks. They used to cost like $3 for a whole pack of them. They're just garbage. They were selling them for $50, $1 a piece at the height of the pandemic. It was unbelievable, and you couldn't go anywhere. We have a no mask rule. You get $250 fine the first time and $750 the second time if you're caught without wearing a mask walking outside or in a store. So, you got to, they won't let you in. You can get arrested. So, we came into this situation where some of the ideas that we had just simply don't work during the pandemic. The good news is humanity learns lessons, right? And of course the supply chain, but look at the supply chain itself. We don't have insight into what's happening within the supply chain. Part of it is it's such a disconnected environment, that you don't have insight of where the problem is. Is it on a ship coming from China? Is it in the middle of the ocean? Is it in Sri Lanka? Is it in California? Is it in New York? Where is it? And those are some of the things they've been talking about, having a more integrated supply chain. And of course, using artificial intelligence to do predictions, like with Click Software, the company I was on the original team of, we did, having the right product at the right place at the right time. So what ship do I need to have with what products loaded on it? Where's that going to be? How do I need to have it unloaded? Where does it go to the distribution site? What trucks need to be there to be able to pick it up that have the space on the truck. Once it gets in there and I inventory it, where does it go out to the retailers to be able to sell it? And those are I mean, this sounds like simple, but it is a kind of a broken system, right? From a supply chain. We understand that now. And we also understand that having inventory may not be a bad thing, especially for critical goods.
Absolutely. That's what we learned from this pandemic. Absolutely. And things have stabilized a lot. And with the news that you just broke about the vaccination, I think the Zoom and likes of Zoom and obviously their value is going to go down for sure. And we hope to have a vaccination so that we can go back to the normal life that we used to lead. But again, we don't know.
I mean, Sonny, you know, you look at this though. I did 3 years. I did work. I actually had a contract with the ISTC, and my job was to go with to these closed cities in Russia, Ukraine, those kind of places that were biochemical cities. It was a joint program with the U.S., European Union, South Korea, Japan, and Canada to help those scientists. These are, you know, former weapons scientists, right, that make this stuff to not go to bad places. And so, you know, I got to see a lot of stuff. This is not, let me tell you, COVID-19 is not the worst, just so we're all on the same page. I mean, there's other things that are a whole lot worse that could come out. So, but what we have to do as humanity, this has happened in 1918, in 1816, the explosion in Tambor, Indonesia, created the year without a summer, where it became winter and 200,000. We've had bubonic plague. We've had this stuff throughout history. The problem is, because our lives are so short, most of us haven't experienced it. You know, yes, we've had it now, but maybe not, won't happen for another 100 years, right? And so we haven't experienced it. So it's new to us, but it's not. If you look at the pictures from 1918, you see people with masks on playing baseball and soccer, football. You see them all over the world. So it's not the first time. The beauty is we have technology so we can keep moving forward.
Absolutely. It's all about technology, AI, machine learning, and our blockchain. Thank you, Gary. Thank
Sure.
you. Nitin, I would like to ask you, I don't know if this is a question relevant to you specifically, but we have realized with this pandemic that when it comes to food, so it's very important these days to understand what exactly we are eating, because it's about building the immunity system. More focus was given on building if you remember, everywhere, like everybody was speaking that to avoid catching the virus, build up your immunity. So when you talk about immunity, it comes from various other factors, but most important factor is the food. So how this whole COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the traceability of food, because you go to supermarkets, you see something is organic, you just pay probably 5 times more than what you'd pay a normal vegetable or a fruit. But what's the guarantee that that's really organic, right? So, but how do you see this technology is going to be beneficial in the food traceability industry? Are there any use cases that you've seen or you've known?
So let me start, what Gary mentioned about the mask, right? So what we saw in the pandemic, right, just from a price analogy perspective, people were willing to pay, 1x, 2x, 3x price on commodities as well, because the just-in-time inventories, which is anyways a non-essential like a mask, but essentials, people end up paying, a lot much premium. So just to give you some of the physical or external benchmark, some of the commodities are 5-year high, So just to kind of give you that. So now let me come to the traceability angle about, so what blockchain, which is, I would not say something in the future, is already happening. And I would not say that, these is only good to have, rather it has become must to have. So today, while we trade in commodities, we record how much, what fertilizers have gone into, what soil, are there involvement of child labor, which continent, which place is going through. Even you can even trace it, like a chocolate in Singapore says the cocoa is, sourced from, this part of Africa. So these are, so initially, when we got into this technology for a traceability angle, we even charged a premium, to various buyers of ours on this information, right? But now today, if we don't have this information on our products, we can't sell it. So I would say, I would say this is not a technology of the future. This is, I would say, like a code which everybody has to get into. So I would say from a use case, from an investor perspective, I mean, there is need to be a solution for it, for every company. And I would say this is agnostic to not just commodities. It is agnostic to everything, because most of the organic or so-called anything produced from soil or land has to have all this information.
Absolutely. Great points there, Nitin. I totally agree. I totally agree to that. And thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. Shrikant, I've got a question for you, because obviously since you're an investor and you have multiple hats, so I just want to ask, like, any success stories or success stories of pivots that you can share from a startup or a founder or that pivoted during this pandemic in the space, and how beautifully they pivoted, or any success stories or green stories you can share with our audience?
The problem in the in the limited market that I see is that there are not many use cases, primarily because of the fact that the pivoting happens not for the best. It happens for cash flow purposes. So there is a blockchain company which tries to develop a particular solution, and then they go into blockchain consulting, right? They consult for a particular solution for a particular financial services. So while it would be a good, it's a good to have income. Somewhere startups kind of lose focus on what they intend to do. So successful pivots I haven't seen. There is not. There are no. I would say no, but there are not enough reference points for me
Right.
to make a informed choice about what successful pivot is. But all I can say is quite new. Quite new in the sense it's still grossly misunderstood or grossly under represented. I think that needs to change between India and Singapore, probably, where the MAS is actively getting involved in the blockchain process, right? In the emerging technology. Here, we don't have the RBI getting involved very deeply. I think there needs to be a change in the governmental mindset first before we have a private investment.
Right. Very, very good point. Good to know that the differences, the way they work. Okay, great. I think, yeah, MAS is very deeply involved in everything, emerging technology, which can, solve problems and make our lives better.
See, for example, Supnendu, I can have a conversation with Supnendu about the way I'm having a conversation with Nitin. I can't have that with the governor of RBI.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Shrikant. Gary, are you there?
I'm
Are
here.
you, Gary,
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Hear me?
Let's talk about, yes, I can see you, I can hear you. Let's talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. And how can the
Do you have enough
startups...
time?
We do have time for you. Yes, for sure. And how can startups use these technologies in the space, in the supply chain space, to scale up and probably, increase their revenues and, look for expansion or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, the situation. So, if you look at machine learning and deep learning, so how can it be applied? So one is so we can grab insight into the where we are. Now think about 5G, think about sensors. Imagine being able to better track, and it's done a bit today, but better track what products we have at what place at what time. So using sensors, 5G, now 6G coming online to track, to be able to do optimization algorithms to basically say, so if I've got a container, how do we stack that? What containers go where? Just to a lot of it's done by paper even today, coming from the shop, is to be able to have the insight. Then the forecasting, what exactly do we need to have at what place at what time? So if it's a product and it's these mass, so when I've got to go to a drugstores, what's the projected demand going to be on a whole lot of factors? So I can figure out from a merchandise planning. So from the point of the retailer all the way back through the supply chain, what product do I need to have at what place at what time to make it more efficient? It's all about efficiencies. And the startups that are out there today, I know with Click Software, we did it for service chain optimization. So what we said, if we have delivery trucks and they're spread out over and there's 1,000 delivery trucks and there's 3 levels of service, and where do I take this oil, this product, and need to deliver it at what time to make sure I'm complying with the 2-hour window, 1-hour window, that kind of thing. Well, those same kind of technologies need to be applied to this whole supply chain. And we need to have, the key is to be able to have vision on what we have. And this idea of, being lean and not carrying inventory levels for critical goods can have a terrible impact on us. So it's one thing about toilet paper, which we talked about, but it's another thing about critical supplies like ventilators, right? Yeah. Can you imagine there weren't enough ventilators, 9 months ago? I mean, we had to use the War Powers Act of the United States to have companies like General Motors get into making ventilators. We had to put in wartime acts to get manufacturing companies to make stuff for the government, right? And so we need to understand, we need to streamline the system a bit more. So then we have a ventilator. How do I get those parts? Where do those parts come from? And the good news is, because of this pandemic, we understand where the inefficiencies in the system and how we can, the need to apply machine learning and artificial intelligence into the system to make it happen. It's not just about optimizing, it's about predicting what product. And then, of course, with unsupervised AI, the system starts to work for itself, right? It doesn't need that human semi-supervised intervention. So it's happening. The good news, it's on the path. And the great news for these startups around the world, focus on artificial intelligence, focus on these transportable models. People are thinking about supply chains right now. Get in before it's too late, because another year it may have slowed down. Get out there as fast as you can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary, for advising this to the startups community, the startups and the founders that we have in a community. So it's very important to embrace the technology as fast as you could, as Gary rightly said. Thank you. So just 15 more minutes before we end the show. I'd like to take some closing remarks and feedback about VCTV. I'm going to start with Nitin, who just joined us for the very first time. Nitin, what are your closing remarks for the show and your feedback about VCTV? Because I would like to have you back on the show. Nitin, you're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to probably say that, just to kind of compare it with an example, we moved on from 1G to 2G to 5G, not, even talking about 6G, right? So most of the countries which are getting their technology on telecommunication would directly go to 5G and 6G, right? So, um, I mean, the point I'm trying to make here is that while we are seeing, acceptance of certain technology like blockchain in Singapore today, which would, probably evolve in, few years, but it is just a matter of time that this adaptation would probably reach a worldwide implementation, in a more evolved way, in coming future. So, I mean, I have, no doubt about that. It might be just a couple of years of, heads up which Singapore has, but eventually the acceptability is going to be, and we would require more innovators, more developers, more investments into the space to take it through, a globally accepted platform. So yeah.
Right, fantastic. And what's your feedback about VCTV?
No, it's a great. I mean, especially what we have seen is the acceptance of virtually video conferencing has gone pretty high, and I think the content and the speakers across the globe, really adds value to the audience here. So look forward for more, viewers
Great. Look
and
forward
join
to
as an audience as well.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing those whatever fantastic stuff. You're working with Enterprise Singapore and MAS, and how
Yeah.
blockchain technology has really helped, accelerate trade finance, and get rid of the issues that you just mentioned with the banks and everything else. So good to know these kind of stories, so that which obviously can be helpful in adopting blockchain faster, much more faster. Thank you, Nitin. Shrikant, over to you. I'd like to know your closing remarks for the show, and again, feedback about VCTV.
No, it's an evolving topic. I don't think even an hour would suffice to discuss about this. I think this would require a lot of brainstorming. So I would request startups to actually start going back to the drawing board and analyzing for what purpose they actually started building a blockchain solution. Somewhere the things have gotten a little hazy for startups, at least in India, and they have pivoted to a consulting mode. So maybe now would be a good time to go back to the basics. Feedback about VCTV, great show, Sunny. I mean, nothing different from what I have experienced in the past. Superb as ever. So looking forward to more such shows.
Absolutely, and I really like your commitment as well to VCTV Asia. Thank you so much, Shrikant, and yes, I'd love to have you back on the show. Gary, what's your closing thoughts, remarks about the topic today?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great time, as I said, for companies as part of this digital transformation. We understand that there are weaknesses in the supply chain, that technologies, optimization algorithms, companies that focus on the supply chain, insight into supply chain, and more important, being able to do prediction and forecasts about what's needed to have the right product, the right place at the right time. In terms of VCTV, I love it. Sunny, your name shouldn't be Sunny, it should be Sunshine. Because every day that I come here, I feel the warmth of your heart. It's great, and your spirit. So thank you very much. And VCTV does a great job of connecting everybody together and keeping them informed and helping them feel part of what's happening in the world during these challenging times.
Thank you, Gary. Again, I have to say, like, you've been very kind to me and VCTV. You've been very committed, because you see definitely a value in sharing that knowledge that you have with the audience and the founders. So really appreciate your time and your commitment to VCTV. Again, we are just come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for your time. Gary obviously was busy, but you still made it to the show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shrikant, again for joining us again on another day. Nitin, again, thank you so much for being such a sport and joining me the last minute, because I think you were the right fit for this panel, having been the end user of the technology and in the supply chain space. So thank you all three of you for being a part of my show today. And founders and startups who are looking to pitch on VCTV, you can always do that. Go to the website and you can see Gary and Shrikant getting featured on our website. You can always reach out to them, and you can write to us and we'll have you on our show. And again, investors and speakers who like to network with other like-minded investors like Gary, Shrikant, or Nitin to understand what's happening in the space, what are the current trends, you can always come and be a part of this panel. So thank you so much. And I really want to see you again. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected, and take care and have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.